Ron Hosko, CBSN security analyst and former FBI assistant director. How surprised were you to see the just-removed director of the FBI call the president a liar?
Yeah, I thought that was, I mean, it certainly felt intemperate, and certainly, I think for anybody who's been watching this saga play out, today was Jim Comey's opportunity for revenge. And although I think he carried himself as somber, as deliberative and thoughtful in his answers, trying to choose the right word, which is the Jim Comey I worked for. You know, I don't think he took great joy in being in this situation. In fact, we heard him thanking the FBI workforce in the early moments of it, and I think that was heartfelt and sincere, and he certainly got his measure of revenge today, if that's in part what he was intending.
We do have, I believe, some sound from Comey on what he said about why he started to write down these memos after his meetings with the president.
I think the circumstances, the subject matter, and the person I was interacting with. Circumstances first, I was alone with the President of the United States, or the President-elect, soon to be President. The subject matter, I was talking about matters that touch on the FBI's core responsibility and that relate to the President-elect personally, and then the nature of the person. I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document. That combination of things I'd never experienced before, but it led me to believe I got to write it down, and I got to write it down in a very detailed way.
Ed O'Keefe, you were there watching. In addition to this very stern language we heard from James Comey, we also got some unique sentences as well. He talked about the fuzz regarding the Russia investigation. He talked about seagulls at the beach when he talked about the press and not wanting to give some of this information directly to them, but through a surrogate or one of his satellites. He said, "Lordy, I hope there are tapes," and he even got a few laughs at times.
And he quoted from Beckett.
Yes.
Yeah, this was a guy with great range, and of course also credited his parents for his good writing skills. So why not? It was really a phenomenal exercise, and it will rank, I think, at least in modern times, as one of the more dramatic moments in congressional history. But I think it's important to step back, as you've been discussing, and remember that this is one narrow piece of a broader investigation. Remember, Chairman Burr started by asking him all the questions there are about Russia. Do you have any doubt that they interfered? No. Do you have any doubt that Russian officials knew what was going on? No. That's the baseline of this whole investigation. The interactions between the president and Comey have become just but one piece of it. Also important to remember throughout this whole thing, he establishes that the reason he felt compelled to publicly engage and explain his decision on the Clinton investigation is in part because former President Clinton walked onto that plane on the Phoenix tarmac last summer. Had that not happened, had the Attorney General not suggested some parlance to use regarding what the FBI was doing, perhaps it would have never ended up in this mess to begin with. And that's important, and Republicans certainly have been reminding us of that since Comey said it. That, remember, this isn't just about the Trump White House, it's also about the Clinton campaign and some Obama administration officials who clearly were concerned about the FBI's ongoing probes and how they were playing off against the election. I'd also say this, Comey, I've seen him here on Capitol Hill before. I talked to colleagues who covered him on a regular basis. He looked tired. It is clear that this has been wearing on him, as he said, and I think it's telling that he was able to hold up under these conditions. He's done this dozens of times in the past, but it was notable today to see him pretty exhausted looking as he walked in for this hearing.
Ron, I wonder how it sits with you that your former boss, not a politician, may end up becoming the most significant political figure of recent times.
You know, this is not a place, I think, where Jim Comey wants to be. I don't think it's how he wants to be thought of historically when we look back on these events in the years ahead. I think Jim Comey merely wanted to be the FBI director for 10 years. He spoke to the workforce and about the workforce with the warmest of terms. And I think Jim Comey is, like so many of us, myself included, anti-leak. I do believe that there are intentional leaks for bad purposes. We perhaps saw one of those earlier this week where the FBI made an arrest. But I also believe that there are leaks for good purposes and for necessary purposes. And that may be to expose wrongdoing. And I'm sure Jim Comey believes in his heart that's precisely what he did, and perhaps he got the result that he wanted because of the naming of a special counsel not very long afterwards. You know, these are important events in our government, how the director and the President of the United States interface with each other and relate to each other, and preserving the FBI's independence is an important thing worth fighting for. And so I think Jim Comey will be able to sleep well tonight, knowing that he's now said that out loud, that he gave this information to somebody, and somebody took that for action, and action occurred.
All right, Ron Hosko, I know you got to run. Thank you very much for your thoughts on this extraordinary day of testimony. Ed O'Keefe, I know you have to go too, so I want to get to you one more time here. One of the issues, though, for James Comey has been the selective nature in which he has decided to speak about investigations and announce whether one is over or has not ended, and this is sort of his latest testimony. I mean, this is something we're likely going to see him in front of the judiciary as well now. This is not the last time we're going to hear from James Comey.
Well, we don't know. We haven't heard for certain that that'll happen. Certainly, members of both parties, I think, want him to come to the Judiciary Committee as well, because there are some official oversight issues they'd like to discuss with him. That committee oversees the FBI and would have worked with Comey even more closely than the Intelligence Committee. So there are specific questions about Comey's interactions with the president or his oversight of these investigations that they want to get out there and help answer. But I'm really glad you guys played that clip of him explaining how it is the information got out there. I think it's really important, especially right now in this day and age here in Washington, for people to understand why he did that and how it happened. As Ron said, you know, whether it was for good or for bad, this is what reporters do. We obtain the information and we report it back publicly. Comey understood that he could do this because his memos were unclassified, not sensitive, and he was no longer a government official. So he went and found a way to get that information out into the public sphere. People are doing that across the government and just outside the government every day, and I think it was a really good, transparent example of how the transactional nature of this kind of thing happens, and hopefully helped explain to skeptics about the work that you and I do, Jeff, about the way government interacts with the press, to understand how it is that those things get out into the public realm. And that is part of why I think so many people up here today, and certainly those of us in the press who've been covering this, are somewhat refreshed by the interactions that went on here, because he was so forthcoming and transparent and about what he had done, what he did afterward, and what he hopes still could potentially come out in the coming months.
And the Washington Post, your employer, has certainly benefited a great deal from all of that. Ed, I know you have to run.
Not in that specific case, yes, but we are doing it on a regular basis, and if anyone has anything, we'll take it.
Yeah, the witching hour approaches here, 5 o'clock.